What's up, guys? Today we're going to be talking about Cha-Ching, The Winter Road by Adrian Selby. So, guys, earlier this year I read Snakewood by Adrian Selby, and I thought it was one of the most ambitious books that I've read probably ever. So, needless to say, it made me very interested in checking out The Winter Road, especially considering that his new book, Brother Red, is right around the corner. I really wanted to catch up with Selby's work. Now, I have seen a lot of people that have only read this book, and there seemed to be some confusion, and they were kind of feeling oh man, I should have read Snakewood first. I've read both books, guys. I wouldn't say that this is really a prequel. I kind of believe that you could jump in either end of the Selby pool. But, that being said, I did read Snakewood first, so it's kind of tough to tell. If there's anybody out there that's read this or read this one before they read Snakewood, I would love to hear how it all kind of came together for you in the comments. So please let me know. But for the rest of you, let's get into it. The Winter Road takes place in an area of the map known as the Circle. Now, the Circle is a rather treacherous area here in the world. It's basically all divvied up by different clans, different politics in each region. Just trying to kind of trek from point A to point B can be rather dangerous. The terrain is super sketchy, not to mention there is plenty other threats like bandits and whatnot. Throughout the story, we will follow Ter Amundsen. And now Ter is an ex-soldier, a woman who has paid the color, but she has now become a merchant. And she wants to do something good with her money and her time. I would say maybe the one thing that's bigger than Ter's body count is her ambition. Ter has the crazy idea of punching a road through the Circle with outposts and bridges, one that will bring these clans together and create a much smoother ride throughout the Circle for merchants and just, everyday travelers. This is a gigantic idea, one that most people won't even believe that she can pull off. But like I said, this is so super ambitious, and one thing we will find out throughout the story is, the cost of that ambition. The story is split up into 3 different parts. The first part of the story will be told both in the now and the then. The then being only a year from the now. So it's kind of like you're popping back and forth between time, but it's not a whole lot of time in between those jumps. This kind of gives you a little mix, right? Because what it does is it kind of throws you into the action and you're a little confused, but you're hella entertained. Then, when it pops you back a year, you start to really get the context. You understand what's going on, and also what this does is flesh out some of the, it fleshes out the plot, but also the politics of each area that we begin to travel to. Now, when we get to part 2, the story will change to just a very linear path, and it will be very straightforward. And then in part 3, the story will change quite drastically to most readers. If you have read Snakewood, you won't be too surprised, but essentially part 3 is completely made up of letters written from 2 characters back and forth to one another throughout the years. Now, I do know that there's probably going to be people that complain about this ending part of the book. Personally, I thought it was one of those moves by Selby that's kind of genius, because really what it shows is that life goes on. You know what I mean? Maybe don't be expecting happy endings. Real life is not really filled with happy endings. It's just filled with more life. And life throws all kinds of crazy shit at you. And that's one of the reasons, I guess I just really liked this letter section, but I'm not going to be surprised if people start bitching. So one of the first things I want to get into is just, I guess, Selby's writing, because I definitely think that it has gotten better. I think that he still is bringing quite a bit into standalones. Selby is not afraid to swing for the fences in a standalone novel. In fact, he's just that's the one thing I guess I noticed after reading both these books is just man, this dude goes big. It doesn't matter if this is a one and done. He's not afraid to hit you with a lot of stuff. Now, that could be overwhelming for some, but I do think that there's plenty of us out there that kind of like the crazy details. Like I said, though, I think Selby's writing has gotten better. It is a little bit more pinched back, a little bit more controlled, but in all good ways. And I'm not saying that Snakewood was bad. I'm just saying I think that you could see easily that Selby, especially when it came to the fight brews and like the components and the ingredients. Because in Snakewood, we were definitely going bonkers with all that stuff. But in here, he gives you plenty. But I felt like he had pinched it back just enough to where it wasn't like you were just consistently being hit with it nonstop. And it just made it easier to digest. And kind of just working off of Selby's writing, I really want to talk about the tone because I felt like a similar tone in Snakewood. And this world that Selby has created is just a very realistic world, and it just sets a very realistic tone for the reader, especially for something in fantasy. Now, I know there's a lot of people that peg it as grimdark, and I'm not going to argue with you if you are a person that considers it grimdark. Personally, I just find it so realistic that it's more like a very dark adult fantasy, or like a low adult fantasy that just, oh man, like I said, the way he tells a story is very uncompromising. So it's not exactly like these cool scenarios or cool characters. It's just the story plays out like one naturally would in a world like this, in a time like this. The next thing I want to talk about is just our main character, Taylor Amundsen, because this is one thing I noticed in Snakewood was that Adrian Selby, he writes confident and like just very strong female characters. That was something I just noticed right out the gate. The only person I felt like had wrote like better female characters was maybe like Frank Herbert. That's just like I'm saying, like Selby's female characters are strong, and they definitely like jump off the page that way. So I was excited to be following, this middle-aged woman because I just kind of like I had a lot of faith in Selby, and he didn't really let me down. Tara Amundsen is a great character with a good voice. She's not perfect, you know what I mean? And she's not like this OP character either. Yes, she's a badass on the battlefield, but she had to pay the color for that, as well as, she's probably just seen all kinds of horrible stuff. But along the way, man, we get to see a lot of sides of Tara, and that main side being her ambition. And I feel like in Snakewood, Adrian Selby did a great job of highlighting the cost of revenge, where I feel like in this book, he does such a good job of highlighting the cost of ambition. I mean, and along the way, we will get betrayal and things like revenge. But honestly, man, while we were following Tara, it was a lot of fun. Like at first, I don't think I was that connected to her because it kind of does just throw you into it. But Selby makes good choices. We get to see certain sides of Tara that you might not expect, especially for somebody who has paid the color. Along the way, Tara will basically have to protect some children, and this is kind of an interesting thing to see play out because we do know that men and women that consume fight brews, basically, men and women who have paid the color can't have children. So what plays out is like kind of this maternal instinct kind of scenario for Tara with these children, and it's very endearing. And it's also just kind of nice to see for somebody who's paid the color. Another thing I want to talk about Tara is just the fact that Adrian Selby drug her ass through the mud, through hell and back, through everything. And I think that kind of just pulled me into the story that much more. But I will say, with her character and just the writing and the situations and everything that was being done, by the end of part one, I was so heartbroken and pulled into the story about the events that had happened. I literally was fuming mad. Like I wanted revenge myself. There was a lot of emotion that got kicked up, you know what I mean? I could very, very, very much sympathize with Tara. One of the coolest things about Selby's world is this magic system, so to speak, because it's not really a magic system, like I said, and this is one thing that furthers that realistic tone. Here in this book, they have fight brews. So if you've read Snakewood, you know what these things are all about. But if you haven't, man... So fight brews are essentially, they're different concoctions. There are so many different fight brews out there, and they're all prepared by men or women known as druidas. And essentially, they just, each brew has different components, different plants, whatnot, from all around the world. Different brews can be better than others and essentially give you the leg up in the competition. Now, the thing about these fight brews, though, is they're highly addictive, and they will fuck up the user's body. Most men and women who have paid the color are really left in shambles. They will actually have to go through quite a bit to not be kind of left just a complete wreck. And if they have paid out, if they ever want to go back in, it's just a nightmare for them. Like I said, it's a little confusing, I guess, maybe to explain, but it's just like these potions, man, and it's awesome. I love the way that Selby does it, and I love that the components, the plants are such a big part of this world, and he makes you forage for them. You know what I mean? Like, you're not just going to get these potions just popping out of nowhere. Like, along the way, you're going to see Tear or people, like, collecting plants, components to make these. Like I said, that only further, like, just fleshes out that realistic tone, and it just brings you something original and cool as shit. Now we can all see I like the book, so let's take a minute, talk about what maybe some people might not like about the book. And honestly, guys, I do feel like maybe every time I read or review a Selby book that I'm going to have to be doing like counter critiques, because I do feel like a lot of people kind of come at Selby from an odd angle, and they just like, they say stuff, they critique it, and they give no reasons. And I hate that so much, and I enjoyed this book, but I have seen certain criticisms. I wouldn't say that people's reviews are bad, guys. I'm just saying specific critiques maybe in those reviews are either wrong, or I just, I can't keep my mouth shut. I gotta say something. First thing I want to talk about is just a piece of criticism I saw, and it's really just confusion. Because basically throughout this book, there are basically the bad guys. They're really the henchmen of the bad guy, and they're known as the white boys. Now, the thing is, yeah, that might seem silly right now, but these are men that are out there. They're painted head to toe in like this white paint chalk. You know what I mean? What are you going to call people that look like that when you live in a, way back in the day? You're not... It's so silly to get upset about that. But no, that's not really what I'm going into. I can understand why the confusion. Because there is a clan called the White Boys, but this reviewer's criticism was that there was a clan called the Blackies, and that they showed up and then they disappeared, and why the hell were they even in there? Now, the thing is like I said, this is confusion, because there is no clan called the Blackies. Not at all. The only time that even mention Blackie is also there's mention of Black Eye. And all of this that's happening is children calling the main character Blackie, or they call her Black Eye. It's actually kind of an endearing part of the story, and it's not pointless. Another criticism I see quite often, actually, about this is just the amount of characters and things that Selby is throwing at you. Like I said, guys, Selby's not afraid to go big. And if you kind of put yourself in one of these characters' like situations in this world, you just, like I said, guys, this is a realistic story. It has that realistic tone. If you were literally traveling from one end of the circle to the next, you would probably run into about 100 different fucking people, and you might not ever see them again. So that's the thing. You're gonna meet shit tons of people. Some maybe are going to be, relevant. Some maybe not. But either way, that is kind of how it all unfolds along a journey. It's not like, I'm kind of tired of, like, fantasy is very unrealistic. I mean, like, you're just saying, oh, well, these specific people, these people that we focus on just so happen to just constantly run into each other. You know what I mean? Or everyone you meet has got a purpose. Well, not in real life. In real life, there are plenty of us that just aren't going to amount to shit. Now, as far as my 2 cents for the slow and the struggling, where at Snakewood I kind of said to go ahead and pump your brakes, I would actually go ahead and encourage you to go ahead and pick up the Winter Road. I do think it's a more straightforward tale, that the prose isn't going to switch up on you when you switch perspectives. You're following one character. There are some jumping in back and forth parts, then, working into that linear chunk and then into those letters. I just think that the way that this thing is structured, it could really help you grow as a reader, because it will give you something a little bit different, but it will make you work a little bit. But like I said, every time you guys are doing work, you will come out the other side stronger readers. And so I think that the Winter Road is probably a better workout for you than Snakewood. But by all means, I would still probably go ahead and say you can get into both. Just take your time with Snakewood. Now for the slow, like I said, if you ain't got no struggles, once again, this is definitely a book that I would say is worth picking up. If you want something that's truly adult fantasy, not PG-13 adult. I'm talking about adult, not grimdark, adult. Adult fantasy, guys. God damn it. Anyway, yes, realistic tone. It's got great action, great politics, fight brews, and a middle-aged woman that is just got the struggle of a lifetime and is filled to the brim with ambition. It's fucking awesome. Honestly, I'm stoked. I can't be further, any more excited, I don't think, for Brother Red to come out next month. So yeah, guys, it's probably worth your time if any of the stuff that I just said sounds interesting. All right. As always, thanks for spending some time down here at the channel. And to Adrian Selby, akadoosh, 2 thumbs up again. Man, you're doing a great job, and I cannot wait for Brother Red. Honestly, the small little bits of tie-ins between stories, just the whole world you got going here, the post, everything has just very much intrigued me, and thank you for creating something so cool. All right. Okay, guys, I gotta get out of here. If you're new, please like and subscribe because it really helps me grow the channel. As always, peace.